When collecting for the Sega Master System, people usually have questions like, why? Yeah, it's one of those consoles that is often written off, especially in the United States, where some folks are of the mindset that the NES represented the entire 8-bit generation, relegated to, oh yeah, Sega made that too status. And don't even get me started on how the SG-1000 feels. Not gonna lie, adding a Master System to your collection feels like a real Cinderella moment, where the console forced to dust the house and stay hidden finally gets its moment to shine. This could be you playing Master System, need I say more? Ironically, one of the first suggestions for collecting a Sega Master System is to not. And no, this is not another pro NES jab, I just mean that you can get a power base converter instead of an actual Master System itself. Plugs right into a Genesis. I mean, you can get the original hardware, but if you want something cheaper that won't add another console and Sega Power Brick to your setup, some find this to be more simple and easy. Of course, it does require you to own a Sega Genesis, but it's hard to imagine anyone wanting a Master System while having no interest in the Genesis. If this is your jam, you're in the right place. What's cool about the Genesis hardware is that it basically has the Master System integrated inside of it. So playing Master System games on a Genesis via a power base converter is generally agreed to be an authentic way to experience, if you even care about such a thing, which if you do, bonus tip, have somebody who loves NES tell you how bad it is while you're playing it. But with the power base converter method, you can also use original Master System controllers, though I'll be honest, you may not want to. Genesis controllers will work, are already pretty awesome, and you probably already have one. The Master System controller is okay, but can sometimes register incorrect inputs due to the way the D-pad is designed, and a lot of Master System games are hard. You need every advantage you can get. Go to the bathroom before you start playing. Trust me, you can't afford the pee-pee dance during these games. I'd suggest the Master System controller for the novelty of using it more than anything, being the controller that was made for the console to see what it's like. But if you're going for pure performance, I think most people will find the Genesis controller works better, especially the 6-button controller with that sweet D-pad. Oh, and I should mention, there's actually third-party versions of the power base adapter you can get, some of which even include the missing FM sound found in the Japanese version of the Master System. That would apply to certain games, a big selling point for some. And speaking of games, let's dive into that. Seeing the games on a system are pretty much always the determining factor, although, quick little honest moment for you, Sega Saturn, a true come for the games, stay for the reset button console. I can't get enough. But when it comes to games for the Master System, my immediate recommendation is always to go for the Disney games first and foremost. If you're a fan of 8-bit games, odds are you'll like some well-made side-scrolling platformers, which is exactly what you'll get with these games. Even Castle of Illusion, famous for the version on Genesis, plays much differently. Some people would even say they like it more. You're looking at one. I find it to be much zippier. Most of the Disney games are pretty affordable too, making for excellent value. Moving on, I definitely want to mention Phantasy Star, a real trailblazer in its day, and one that I don't own, a face that Master System fans could just slap. Hey, maybe one day I'll get it. Another big recommendation is always Wonder Boy 3, which I do own. Still want to slap my face? I don't blame you. This game is one of those games that really brings the chickens home to roost. A great game like this can only be ignored for so long before people start paying attention and hopping aboard the Master System hype train, or just buy this remade version. But the Master System version is still special. Great combination of action platforming mixed with where do I go, what do I do elements without getting too frustrating. But outside of the games I've highlighted, there really really are quite a few other great games. Games maybe everyone doesn't realize exist, like Ninja Gaiden that can be a bit pricey now, and games maybe everyone doesn't realize exist that aren't as pricey, like Consaden here. A real tricky doozler of a game, very solid and fun. Here's some of the other games people typically recommend, some of which I don't own, some of which I plan to own, and some of which I respect others for liking, even though they're not for me. Either way, these games, along with the ones I've already mentioned, are the games you'll be most likely to buy. And yeah, the prices really range on Master System games. My advice, if you do indeed want to collect physically, is to start with the cheaper games that look interesting, then work your way up depending how much you're enjoying it. Seems like common sense, but people need to be told to do things like not be jerks, and look how many of those we got. In any case, you'll definitely want to consider where you buy them from and in what condition. And by where you buy them from, I mean like which country. Especially if you live in the United States, you're almost definitely going to want to buy some of your games from other countries, as the games tend to be more plentiful and in some cases actually exist, with not every worthwhile game even being released in the US. For me, I feel like I found a lot of listings in Europe and Australia. In general, games from other regions will work just fine on a US Master System, but Japanese cartridges can be a problem, requiring an adapter, of which it seems there have been some recent attempts at solutions, none of which I've tried out, so it's up to you. Converters to play US games on Japanese consoles, called the Mark III, are much more common. Whether or not you want the box and/or manual makes a big difference as well. For the folks who are typically okay with owning cartridge games without a box, since you still get the artwork, well, no such luck here. I usually don't buy cases for cartridge games, but for Master System games, I buy the cases. Not as big on the manuals though, not very inspired, and feel closer to the manual you'd get for a dresser or something. But there we have it, some of my advice. It's a relatively straightforward console to get into, especially if you get a power-based converter. Just plug it right into your Genesis and you're done. It's basically just a pass-through for the cartridges, doesn't need any additional cables, power bricks, or anything. A real rarity for Genesis attachments. Now, if the experience feels lacking for you because of it, you could always just grab some miscellaneous cables and then just sort of drape them on there or something. But yeah, pretty simple setup. Most complicated thing for Master System collecting is buying games from other parts of the world, but honestly, it's the same as buying it from your own country, just takes a bit longer in shipping. But with all that said, I'd be curious what you thought of my advice, as well as if any of it might have compelled you to give the Master System a shot. Hey, at the very least, you could always just make it a New Year's resolution. Most of those are abandoned by February anyhow. But with all that, leave your thoughts down below, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the Red